Mayor Nutter, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you. Thanks. Dave.
You've completed one term in office. Give us a high moment and a low moment.
Well, let me possibly take the low first. I think the worst singular moment. I mean, there have been a series of things. Maybe we'll talk about those. The worst singular moment, I think, for the city and certainly for the state and the nation was this incredible Great Recession. I think pretty much for most came out of nowhere, hit hard and pretty rapidly, and required an equally tough and rapid response. It has impacted the city pretty much from the summer of 2008. It still continues on to this day, but at least for 2 to 2.5 years, all we saw was dropping revenues, declining tax receipts in virtually every category. But beyond that, I think it really has been the impact that it's had on people. People have lost their jobs, lost their homes, health care, pensions, hours cut back, impact on families and certainly on children. So, I mean, that is unfortunately the big low moment. I think there have been a number of high moments, but I think the flip side of that is guiding the city through this recession, and about the fall of 2010, we were at least able to look people in the eye and say, we've at least stabilized the finances of the city. No longer these steep, precipitous drops. And we had kind of actually started to level out summer of 10 into the fall. I think the national economists will now tell us that there was a bit of a second dip, 10 into 11. We saw some of that in the summer of 2011, and we're kind of starting to level a little bit again. But that has been the singular big issue here in the city, and we still have a government to run, no matter what's going on. And I think we've had a series of significant positive things that have happened in Philadelphia, notwithstanding the one big bad thing.
That first set of the recession presented you with the need to cut deeply and quickly, and there was a set of proposed budget cuts that got a tremendous reaction. People really remember their proposal to close 11 libraries. Of course, there was pushback. Ultimately, a different course was struck. Did that experience change the way you approach these fiscal problems?
That was certainly a big lesson. It was, again, I've said, any number of times, it was a recommendation, but ultimately it was my call. I made that call. It was, in my view, ultimately the wrong call for still trying to accomplish the right goal. The goal was to save money, not to close libraries. And we looked at that a lot of different ways, but given the other cuts that were taking place, everyone had to take a cut. Ultimately, we were able to figure out how to save the $8 million, which was the goal, and none of the libraries closed. So big lesson there for me and the rest of the government, and I've used that example numerous times in internal conversations about big decisions, which is, have we explored every possible way to accomplish whatever that next thing is? Have I asked every question? Have we looked at it, kind of 17 different ways to just make sure, again, based on that experience. So it's something that has certainly stuck with me. I think it helped us to make better decisions in some of the tough decisions that we had to make in other areas. Again, every department, every agency, every part of the government had to take some amount of cut. And as big a fan and as big a supporter as I am of libraries and literacy and reading, we had to make that tough call.
I want to look forward a little bit. You've made some major moves in education. You got some new appointees to the School Reform Commission, serious people. Yeah. You and I have been around long enough to see a lot of reform efforts at school. Smart people of goodwill who ultimately were judged not to have really moved the ball forward enough. Mm-hmm. What makes you think Or do you think this team is fundamentally different? What can it offer that's different?
Well, a couple things. Without saying anything about any previous appointees and people who have served, I think anyone who's gone on the School Reform Commission went on with the best of intentions, the best of goals and objectives. But the SRC, like any other entity, it's 5 members. Then there's the management of the school district. There's, the governor, there's the secretary of education, there's the general assembly, there's the mayor, there's the city council, there's hundreds of thousands of parents, there's nearly 200,000 students, community leaders, community activists, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the 5 people serving now collectively represent possibly the best 5 people at one point in time on the SRC in the 10 years that we've had it. Again, that doesn't mean that there haven't been great people on the SRC from time to time over those 10 years. But when you look at these 5, I think it's a pretty unique group of folks. So that's one. 2, I'm not saying anything about any of my predecessors in the mayor's office. Everyone has their areas of focus, their areas of intense interest. And, to be honest with you, more than a couple people have said to me before I was sworn in, and even during the course of the campaign, you're really taking a risk talking about education so much, proposing to do different things in education, proposing to reform it, and to take it on. 1, you're not directly in charge of it. 2, you don't own it. 3, it really is controlled by, a number of other forces, or at least it has a number of folks that it has to be accountable to. My response, of course, was, this is my city, these are my children, and if the schools don't function well, and that what I mean by that is children having good outcomes, then the city won't function well, ultimately. So our fate and fortune, I believe, is inextricably connected to and tied to and intertwined with the performance of schools here in this city. I think it drives everything else that happens. So I felt personally compelled that I had to take it on. I think that the Secretary of Education, Ron Tamales, is a stand-up guy who has his own thoughts and ideas. He works closely with Governor Corbett, and I think we've developed a good, honest, straightforward working relationship where both of us are committed to making change happen. I think that many, many members of City Council feel the same way, and many members of the General Assembly. So I think you have to align the main players here, SRC, school district, state, and city, in a way that hopefully is focused on the one thing that we should be focused on, which is kids.
Will you get any more money out of the state? That's been a huge issue. I mean, he may be of goodwill, but can he give you any money?
It's something that you can't certainly automatically count on. Cuts were made last year. I saw a report. I think the state, right now is maybe about $500 million or so off of projections. There are some things that you certainly need money for. There are some other things that I think are more about policy and procedure and focus. We don't need any more money to try to fix the fact that 15,000 kids a day don't come to school. That doesn't have anything to do with money. That has to do with kids not showing up. That has to do with truancy. That has to do with parents not paying attention to what's going on with their kids. It also has something to do with safety to and from school and in the school building.
But don't you need money for truant officers for a program to get those kids there? I mean, it's not simple, is it?
You might have truant officers. You might have safe corridors where people in the community would give some time to help ensure that, again, at least the passageways to and from school are safe. We're working with school police. We sent over Chief Inspector Myron Patterson to head up safety matters over at school. We need a mindset here in this city that not only is school important, but that getting to and from school is important, that having a safe building is important. And again, there were some school police officers who were cut. So yes, you can always we will always need, in these tough economic times, you will certainly need some additional financial resources. But I want to use the resources that we have wisely and get more people actively engaged to help out where we might have some shortfalls.
I want to turn look back at the
I
Arlene...
mean, education ultimately happens in the classroom. That's that student, 20 or so other students, and that teacher. And that everyone is focused, that kids know how to read, that they're doing their homework, that they come to school ready to learn. And so we need to make sure that young people, their parents, and the teacher, that at least that three-way relationship is solid and moving in a positive direction.
I wanted to ask one question about the Arlene Ackerman episode, one that a lot of people would like to forget, and that is you have built a reputation for ethics and transparency in city government.
Yeah.
There was criticism about the fact that in order to get her out of a binding employment contract, that you participated in an effort to recruit, in effect, secret donors for her severance payment. Was that a mistake?
Well, probably have to take apart a little bit of your premise here. The first was that the decision had been made by the School Reform Commission that they were seeking to move in a different direction with the former superintendent. There was a, you can call it a negotiation or a dispute, or some resolution had to be made with regard to, she had a binding contract, how much was going to be paid out. But and I need to push back a little bit, at least on the idea that the purpose of the SRC or the district seeking those donations was for the purpose of moving the former superintendent along. That decision had already been made. The only question was how much would it take to settle that particular matter, given the fact that she had a contract. That was one. Two, my primary focus and main role in all of this was to limit the amount of public dollars that went into whatever the ultimate settlement was going to be. And when it was presented to me, this is certainly not my idea, but when it was presented to me that there might be some individuals interested in supporting an effort that minimized the public expense of whatever that ultimate settlement was going to be, I said that if there are individuals like that and they wish to proceed in that fashion, that I was okay with that. The fact that they did not want to be known, quite honestly, Dave, in numerous other situations, certainly fundraising projects, building projects, any number of projects. I can probably show you a number of facilities around this city that are big public, well-known buildings that everyone loves and appreciates, with a plaque on it that says, big gift, anonymous. It was going to a nonprofit. There was no ability, since the premise here was that they're unknown, that they would benefit. The government was not involved. The city government.
But you made some of those calls, right, to some of those individuals.
I did talk to a couple of folks.
Right,
yeah.
and so they might have perceived that they were doing you a favor, that this would be perceived as a good turn.
I think
for the city.
Let's be really clear. I think anyone who's ever had any contact or dealings with me over a long, long period of time, even before I became mayor, knows that if I call you about something on behalf of the government or the city or some other larger effort that you can support or not support, you're not going to get anything extra. And my general view is that you want to support good government, and that's a good thing. Other than that, if you have other intentions, you probably should not do anything.
So all things considered, you'd make the same call?
I think all things considered, my primary focus was to minimize the amount of public dollars that went into a settlement from a district that was suffering with a $650 million deficit. Again, Dave, I always take the position that there's always often a better way to do something, and if it was possible that the individuals had not requested that kind of anonymity, then I think for all intents and purposes that would have been a better process. But that opportunity did not present itself. And when people say that they'd like to contribute to something and remain anonymous, again, I will tell you that you will find those kinds of plaques, those kinds of donations all over the city of Philadelphia.
Violence is still, and safety are still tremendous issues. Violence is a big issue in this city. Sure. I know that you have some new initiatives coming in the second term. What can you tell us?
I will maintain our focus certainly on violent crime, and in particular in certain communities in our city where there's an excessive concentration of crime, certainly violent crime and homicides and other activities. I think one of the positive things that has happened during the last 4 years, even though as you and I sit here today, we have fewer police officers on the force than we did the day I was sworn in 4 years ago. We've significantly cut the police department's overtime budget, collapsed a variety of units, canceled classes of newly anticipated officers, and even with that, homicides are down 17%, shootings are down 12%, and violent crime is down 15%. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, no one really thought that we could do anything about crime here in this city, and I thought we could. Police Commissioner Ramsey and his team have done a fantastic job. Having said all of that, we still have more work to do. We're not done, and we will maintain our focus. The biggest problem here is that 85% of homicides in Philadelphia are committed with handgun, virtually all of which are illegal, in the hands of people who shouldn't have them in the first place. 72% of homicide victims in Philadelphia are African-American males. And the overwhelming majority of those African-American males who are killed by other African-American males. There's a significant, dramatic epidemic going on in the African-American community as it relates to violent crime, shootings, homicides, and other violent activities. And so working with the District Attorney, State Attorney General, U.S. Attorney, FBI, DEA, and the ATFE, we have to, and we've started discussions around a new strategy related to illegal weapons here in the city of Philadelphia. We must be that much more aggressive, but also much more coordinated in our efforts, utilizing the resources that we have. I don't necessarily know that this will be the national issue that it should be. It is an epidemic all across America, but at least what I'm petitioning for is the local resources to take on this challenge. We must get these guns out of the hands and out of the homes of people who should not have them.
So there will be an additional focus on guns. Anything else
Absolutely.
in this area that you want to tell us about right now?
Just that, I mean, obviously we have, well, as you well know at least, 2 classes of officers in right now. They'll be out next year, and we plan to do additional hirings. In the proposed cuts, because of budgetary challenges, we did take public safety off the table, and we need to beef up our forces. Again, Commissioner Ramsey and his team, with now a 5-year plan with a crime-fighting strategy, continuing community policing, Philly Rising, public police service areas, and more beat patrols, foot patrols in targeted neighborhoods will help us a great deal. And that's about all I can say at the moment.
Okay. Over the summer, after the city had experienced some attacks on folks in Center City by gangs of teenagers, you gave a speech at Mount Carmel Baptist Church, and I want to read this because some of your words were widely quoted then. You said in part to kids, particularly African-American kids who had engaged in some of this behavior, "You've damaged yourself, you've damaged another person, you've damaged your peers, and quite honestly, you've damaged your own race." You further said, "Part of the problem in the black community is we have too many men making too many babies they don't want to take care of, and we then end up dealing with your children." Those remarks got quite a bit of play in conservative media. Do you feel like you got the message right, that you hit the tone you wanted to then?
Yes. It is unacceptable for anyone to walk down the street, run down the street, or do anything else and beat up somebody else. It's particularly unacceptable for our young people. They have their futures and their lives ahead of them. They're going to get in trouble and have to deal with that for the rest of their lives. But, I just laid out to you some very chilling and damning statistics about crime in the African-American community. And so I want to send an even stronger message to our young people that this is not a path for you to go. People watch what other folks do. If you're concerned, I also said, if you're concerned about how you're going to be treated walking down the street or trying to get a job, if people only know what they know from reading the newspaper, listening to radio, watching TV, no disrespect, those images get built up. If you don't want to be characterized that way, then don't act like that. So, I mean, I was talking to young people here in Philadelphia in the aftermath of just a crazy circumstance and situation. And I think that was a Friday night. 4 young people arrested, people beat up on the street for no reason whatsoever. So, whether it's conservatives or progressives or liberals or anyone else picking that up, it was pertinent to Philadelphia. It was pertinent to our situation here. It was what was on my mind. And I think what you're going to find, Dave, is increasingly I'm just going to say what's on my mind. And, I'll be respectful when I say it, but I'm going to say it and I'm going to mean it.
You have a new city council president, Darrell Clark. He worked for John Street, a guy that you didn't get along with so well for a lot of years. You supported someone else for city council, not Darrell Clark, who apparently has prevailed. What kind of relationship do you and he have? What do you expect going forward?
Well, I think it's kind of missed. Apparently, it's bypassed a lot of folks that Councilman Clark and I have known each other for, I don't know, probably 20-some-odd years. I was here as a staff person in 1984, and he was here, of course, with then Councilman Street.
Well, you knew John Street a lot of years, too, and that didn't go so well.
I did. Well, we did know each other for a good long time. We worked very closely together on any number of initiatives. There were some things that happened. I don't have that kind of relationship with Councilman Clark. And so I think that, I go into this with a very fresh look at what's going on. It's a new leadership role for Councilman Clark. He and I have talked on a couple occasions now. We have a good, positive working relationship. And I think both of us would acknowledge publicly, as we did privately, that the city is depending on the two of us to work together. He has, of course, a large responsibility trying to manage the affairs of council and 16 other members. I have the administration. But, the everyday citizen ultimately could really care less how we feel about each other, or do we go out for ball game or drinks or whatever. They don't care. What they want to know is that this will be a safer city, a smarter city, a more sustainable city, that we're going to run the government with integrity and act like we have some sense down here. And I am very, very confident that Darrell Clark and I, Councilman Clark and I, will get along quite fine because both of us are committed public servants and we know who we work for, citizens of this city.
The council president in your first term wasn't a strong leader, didn't take it as her responsibility to corral votes either for or against any particular proposal. Other council presidents have been have used a firmer hand in trying to build coalitions and enforce some kind of discipline. What do you think President Clark will be like? Are you going to count on him to be your agent, in effect, in getting votes when you need them?
Well, again, I think that there is a mutual dependency here. The council members depend on the administration to do certain things. I mean, we're the ones that pick up trash. We move snow. We, in many instances, help to, bring a business or consummate business deals or whatever the case may be. So we have our role to play, and the council members, having been a council member, you're fairly dependent on the administration to make some things happen. At the same time, I can't vote in city council. I can't get a bill passed, on my own. I'm not there. So that's a large part of their role in working with constituents and sharing information. And so this really has to be a partnership. And I think that, no question, I will depend on the council president to help to move an agenda along. We also have to do a good job at explaining to the other 16 members, what in the world we're trying to do at any moment in time. And it's still true that there are three very, very important numbers upstairs in the council chambers. 9 votes to pass a bill, 12 votes to override a veto, 6 votes to sustain one. So, I mean, this is not the highest level math here, but it really is about partnership, it's about relationship, it's about sharing information and mutual respect.
Have you established anything like a regular Tuesday meeting like Ed Rendell did with his council president?
You know, we, quite honestly, we haven't gotten to that level of detail. Certainly, Councilman Clark is aware of that. I've been through that experience. I expect that we will set some regular meeting, but, you know, to be honest with you, he's been pretty busy. I mean, it's both of our responsibilities to work through this. But I mean, he's got 6 new members coming in, other veterans who want to do all the things that they do. I think it'll take us about 5 seconds to figure out when we're going to meet. But I think a lot of time and attention, certainly post the end of the session, has been devoted to getting a new council organized and getting ready for you know, inauguration and first day of business.
2 more things. You've twice sought to get a sweetened beverage tax enacted here. You going to come back to that?
You know, obesity continues to be a major challenge and issue here in the city of Philadelphia. Nearly 2/3 of children and adults in Philly are overweight or obese. Sugar-sweetened beverages are certainly a contributor to that, not the only issue, but an easily substituted one. You know, it's basically a product that I think has no known nutritional value. So we'll see what the future brings on that. It's still a significant issue, not just here in Philadelphia, but all across the United States of America. So, I mean, it's...
That sounds like, yes, it's
an issue that I care greatly about. I've not made any plans about it, but it's certainly something that I maintain a focus on. We have a grant right now from the CDC, Center for Disease Control, helping us, you know, kind of get across that particular message.
Finally, you're, I believe, Vice President of the National Conference of Mayors, is that right? Or
Vice President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, yes.
You're Vice President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. You have something of a national profile. Will you commit to staying for all 4 years of your second term?
I have no expectation of going anywhere. You know, by line of succession, and if things work out for me, you know, next June I should become president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I fully expect to be here for my entire 4 years as mayor.
All right. Is that a Sherman-esque absolutely, or you expect to, but things could change?
Yeah, I fully expect to serve out my term.
All right. Mayor, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave.